Hi, everybody. Dr. K here. Welcome to this edition of Office Hours with Dr. K. We're going to talk about journaling again because it's really great and I think everybody should do it. But we're going to talk about a specific angle in journaling. This time we're going to talk about getting into flow state. What's my title? Find your flow in journaling. So flow state is something that I've talked... here's a dog. Hello, dog. This is Buddy. Hi, Bubba. Come. Come and say hello. No, he's sniffing things. So flow state is you know what, let me read my script. I did publish a post about flow state a couple of weeks ago, and I have a very extensive blog at this point, crazy, but just pop into my blog, theessentialmusician.ca, and put flow in the search and you'll find it. It's called In Search of Flow, and flow is really interesting. It's if once you've experienced it, you're going to want to experience it again. It's pretty cool. And I write what I know about personally, and I have been able to get into flow a number of times, and there's a couple of ways in which I do that on a regular basis, and one way is doing it in journaling, and I've been able to get there a number of times. So I want to help you learn how to do that too, because it's pretty great, and you come up with these just great solutions to problems. And next week we're going to circle back and talk about, for my musicians, how you can find your flow in performing and practicing, which is pretty great too. So in my last post about journaling, I offered some ideas on how to set yourself up for flow success in journaling. And basically, you need two things when you're journaling to get into flow. You need a distraction-free environment, and you need a chunk of dedicated time. So if you're a perfectionist, my musicians, if you're a perfectionist, you might be starting to fidget here. But this really is all you need to get into flow state in journaling, is a distraction-free environment and a chunk of dedicated time. That's really all you need. You don't need the perfect location. You don't need the perfect paper. You don't need the perfect pen, though it does help to have a glidey pen. You don't need any of that. You just need distraction-free and a chunk of time. So if you want a little more detail, go back into the post on In Search of Flow and you'll get a little more information on that. But there are many kinds of journaling, but the one that I think morning pages, the long form, 3 sides of a page, 8.5 by 11, minimum 30 minutes kind of writing, I think that's the best kind of journaling to get into flow state because it allows you the time to get there. It doesn't happen immediately, not very often. So I think, all journaling is good journaling, but my personal opinion, the best way to get into flow state in journaling is to do the long form morning pages. So let me see. Writing in the morning. And one of the main reasons why writing in the morning is so good is because it allows you to get ahead of the distractions. So remember I said rule number 1 is you need to have a distraction-free environment. When you're up early enough in the morning, usually you can get ahead of the distractions. There's 2 categories of distractions I want to talk about. One is external distractions and the other one is internal distractions. So in external distractions, this is pretty obvious. Oh, here's another dog. Hi, sweetheart. The idea is to find a distraction-free environment. I got my dogs there, I'm distracted. So in my house, what this looks like is, I just changed my page. What this looks like is my son likes to get up and play Minecraft in the morning, and sometimes he has Minecraft friends who play early in the morning, and he started getting on his microphone while I'm trying to write in the other room, and that's distracting. So now we have a deal. When you know what your boundaries are, when you know that you need a certain chunk of time to write, you can say, I need to have quiet time until 7:30 or until I get up from the chair, whichever comes first. So we have a deal, and that has been working. Another distraction that sometimes I get is the dogs want to get up and go out. Most of the time that doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. So if they're wandering around, I try to get them to go out before I sit down, and that happens. And another one for me is coffee. I need coffee. So ideally, when you get up to write your morning pages, you roll out of bed and just start writing. I can't do it that way. I need my coffee. So I work that into my morning routine because without coffee, I get distracted. Easy as that. Let's talk about internal distractions. This is the biggie. This one's a really big deal. When you wake up early and you're too groggy to think about what you're doing, so you just do it, like brushing your teeth or making coffee or whatever you do when you first get up in the morning. It's kind of like that. So when you know how to do something and you just take all the decision making out of everything and you just kind of do a thing because you know how to do it, that's what we're talking about here. I think that's the kind of state you're looking for when you're in your journaling. It's just not thinking about what you're doing and just doing it. I think night owls have a real advantage here because some of my very best morning writing happens when I'm too groggy to really pay attention. That's when the epiphanies happen. So my night owls, don't use this I don't like to get up in the morning thing, or I'm too groggy in the morning to do this. Don't use that as an excuse. It's the best way to do the writing is when you're tired. It's the best way. I mean, you got to get enough sleep. But my morning people, you know what I'm talking about. Like, we're the kind of people who need to set 5 alarms, you know, even if we have to get up by 10 a.m. These are the people I'm talking about. So I get up at 20 after 6. That's early for a night owl, but it's an advantage when I'm writing because very often I can get into flow state that way. It also really helps when you're, the point of doing this and getting into your flow state when you're writing is it helps to silence your inner critic. This is the really big one. It shows up in a number of sneaky ways. My thing is starting to tilt. One of the sneakiest ways the inner critic shows up is judging whether you're journaling correctly, right? So just write the thing. Just write it. The right way to write is just to write. That's it. That's all there is to it. And if you catch any judgments, notice them and squash them as they come up. And by the way, it really helps get into flow and silence that inner critic. If you know you're not going to be reading your pages again, if you're not going to be rereading them, you tend to just write more smoothly because no one's going to read them. Who cares if they don't make sense? Whatever. I used to write paragraphs and indents. And no, I just write now. Doesn't matter. No one's reading them. Okay. My next heading is called Like a Rock in a River. I'm not someone who meditates regularly. I consider my writing to be my meditation, but I have done some meditation in the past. I've dabbled, I've learned some things. I like it, but it's just not my go-to thing. Maybe you have a regular meditation practice and you'll see some of the parallels here with flow state. I used to go to this great yoga studio many years ago, and there was this one instructor who had a great meditation, a guided meditation at the end of her practice. And this is one of the only instructors who's ever managed to get me into a great, let's call it flow state in meditation. And she had this beautiful saying. It was something like a rock in a river, let your thoughts just float on by. If you know who that is, let me know. I'd like to cite her and thank her. So this is what we're looking for when we notice distractions. When you notice them, that's okay. They're going to come up. But like a rock in a river, let your thoughts just float on by. If they come up on the page, write them out, keep going. So for example, when my son gets yelling at his computer in the other room, I might just write, my son is yelling at the computer again, and then I just keep going. And when you can do that, then you can really start to control how quickly you get into your flow state. How it feels. How does it feel when you're in flow state, when you're journaling? Like I said, you got to sit there and write for a while. And if you're doing it, you know, if you keep going, the flow usually happens on the 3rd page. It's really great when that happens. Let me see. You need to have your distraction management plan in place. So try to have your external distractions managed, but start dealing with your internal distractions. Let them float on by. It's okay. And when you're in the flow state, you don't know you're in it until you're not in it. So if you're like in flow and you're going and you're having all these epiphanies and whatever, if you're really in that state, as soon as you think, oh, I'm in flow state, you're not anymore. That's the funny thing about it. But you can get there. The trick is just to keep going. Sometimes you will have a great answer to a problem that's been bothering you. Sometimes you'll come up with ideas that you never expected. I came up with a great solution to something today, and I didn't realize it had been sort of lurking in the back of my mind. So I had a little moment there where I had a big 3rd page epiphany. I don't know if I was in flow or not. Maybe I was. There's this one time fairly recently, and I wrote a blog post about it. I needed to give myself a stern talking to. So I had gotten myself into flow, and I was on the 3rd page, and I was just going. And I was giving myself the speech that if a friend were talking to me, would be giving me that speech. So I gave myself that speech, and it was so good. I got to the end of the 3rd page, and I put my pen down, and I just laughed. Right? Because I just thought, okay, well, I needed that. It's like my pen was just moving ahead of my thoughts. It was really neat. So it doesn't happen every time, but it can happen. So one of the things about getting into emotional states, essential oils really help. Aromatherapy is really powerful with this kind of thing. It's kind of amazing. I'm a total skeptic, but I swear it works. There I'm going to get a little bit more into this next week when we talk about getting into flow when you're practicing and performing. But there are certain oils that are really good at helping with managing distractions. And I swear by frankincense. I will never get on stage without frankincense. It is the rock in the river oil. It's the one that helps you notice distractions but not become distracted by them, not to become sucked in by the distractions. Really, frankincense is primo for that. I wrote a whole bunch of this in a blog post called Your Diffuser, Your Work From Home Productivity Hero. So if you go to the blog and put hero in the search, you'll find it. But I explored in that post how oils, you can use them strategically to trigger a desired emotional state with a specific aroma. So what that means is the limbic system in your brain controls memory and emotion in the same spot. And there are certain oils that induce certain emotional states, and they can prove that, but scientists can prove that. But it goes further than that. If you experience a strong emotional reaction and it's connected with an aroma, that connection is so strong that you will always have that connection of that emotional state with that aroma. So for example, lavender tends to be very calming, but if someone has had a traumatic experience and there has been a lavender scent in the room or wherever they were, then they may always associate that smell with that emotional state. But you can use that to your advantage. If you find that you're using an oil and you get into a great flow state, then keep using that oil every time. And then your brain will be like, oh yeah, I remember what this feels like. So you can use them strategically. I always use a mint, a citrus, and a something herby, which is also great for productivity. But that's what I use for flow state. And if you're concerned about distractions, throw some frankincense in there or just sniff some. Really, really powerful. Like, seriously, really powerful. So report back. If you journal, I would love for you to comment below. Tell me if you've gotten into flow state in journaling. I just think it's the greatest thing ever and totally worth it. And this is why I journal, to get into that state. Also, if you're someone who has trouble getting up in the morning and you'd love to do some morning journal writing and you just need a little help getting yourself to bed so you can get some sleep so you can get up in the morning, I have a freebie for you. Go to my website. It's a pop-up. Just go anywhere on the site and it'll pop up. And it's just a free download with a guide on how to help you get yourself to bed and avoid bedtime revenge procrastination. So check that out. It might just help you get up in the morning, get some writing, and get into flow. Friends, thank you for hopping on. Keep writing. Bye.